shared everything. Just want to be sure that I share everything. Because how to produce living knowledge, this is okay. Done, and then just a second.
Yeah.
L'ho pubblicato anche su X. Okay. So, hello everybody. We are here with Andreas Rumpfhuber for the first interview, the first contribute of our third and last day of the How to Produce Living Knowledge event. And well, Andreas Rumpfhuber is an architect. Just to briefly presenting him, is an architect, founder of Expanded Design, who is focusing his research mostly about the intersection of architecture and economics, and related to what we are going to talk today, between the relationship between architecture and pieces of work, and how the architecture defines and influences the spaces of work. So, hi Andreas. And
Hi.
if you want to add something else, you can
do
it.
Don't have to add anything. I think it was a wonderful presentation, and thanks for the invitation, actually. I'm really happy to be part of this, your project.
Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. Let's start. We are developing the concept of pedagogies and immaterial labor, and today we would like to investigate a little bit more the concept of immaterial labor connected to architecture. And so if you want to make or give us a brief presentation, a brief introduction about the evolution of immaterial labor and when it started or where it started, it would be great.
Yeah. I think, like in a way, generally speaking, it's like this, that immaterial labor has never been, was always, put it like this, was always part of our society, but why it is becoming interesting for today, and is that it after the Second World War, it started to become a dominant mode of labor production, in the Western industrialized societies, like in Europe, but also in the States. So in that respect, that's why it's important, and then I'm not saying, like as some other people saying, or kind of thinking that it's the only way of producing and today, but it's a form of labor that has become dominant since the Second World War. So I think this is important to notice and always to think of as well, because like a lot of dirty labor got outsourced after the Second World War to Asia and other parts of the earth. So when we speak about immaterial labor, so this concept material labor was coined after the Second World War, especially in the 50s and 60s in Italy, in relation to labor movement and the labor riots, or not only labor, but like the important thing in Italy, as you certainly know, is that it was not only the workers that would riot, but also the students and workers would or students and philosophy faculty or faculty of universities and laborers would unite and try to think of a common ground. Basically, as I would kind of define immaterial labor, it is that immaterial labor is something that how to say that this it becomes, as the term says, it's no longer that we produce physical products, like these things, but it's about a labor form that produces a communication in the broadest sense. Yeah? Like we are communicating that around, we also work in a way. But this concept also includes other forms that and communication and speaking and chatting, if you will, was in principle a labor form that was based in the bourgeois tradition, like as also creativity and stuff like that. Yeah, so this is in very rough terms. It's something that of course becomes important in the moment when, especially after the Second World War, automats and calculating machines that later on become the computers take over parts of the work process and the labor process, and of course. Immaterial labor for me is also kind of very much and very directly connected to this new idea or the new thought model of cybernetics, because cybernetics, what it does in a way is that it really creates it creates a utopia, a utopia of a flat hierarchy of a society where the machines, the computers that become, or the machines and calculating machines that become later on the computers, and the human being and especially the human brain work similarly. Yeah, so we all can, we can program and reprogram computers, but we also can program and reprogram the brain. So, so this initial idea of cybernetics is that there is a plane hierarchy. Where these machines and this and the people would sit, and this is of course also something that is another utopia, which how to organize our society that is not top down and hierarchic, but really flat. And so there is in this model there's also kind of I also would always think that especially after the Second World War, it has also an emancipatory character, and. So in that moment when we speak about calculating machines and stuff like that, information flow or information input and output becomes very important. That's also this is in a way also the basis of immaterial labor, so to speak. So you have like I think Lazzarato would define it by two terms. The one is that the workers need to start to be able to work with calculating machines at one point, and the other is that labor becomes more and more structured like public space. I think for architecture, I think we have. But when we speak about architecture and immaterial labor, I think there is one concept that I really appreciate a lot, because I think it tells us what happens with architecture or the city, is that a concept coined by Mario Tronti. Mario Tronti was as you know, Italian philosopher and so to speak, the founding father or the father of the operaist movement in the 50s and 60s, and he would speak of the factory of society, yeah? And I think that the factory of society is not only a social concept, but also a spatial concept, because you can kind of imagine that the factory that was formerly kind of closed off with a wall around, literally spilled out into the city, making the whole city, the whole society into a factory. Yeah. So, and I think this is the key concept when we think of space and immaterial labor, or space and postfordism, if you want to say, like because like immaterial labor is always kind of related to the discussion of post-Fordism as well. So it is what happens with architecture, with the space, with the urban space, but also with us, is that there are lots of convergences. You know, like the worker or the human being is connects to machines, becoming the cyborg. But also, like but the same thing happens with spaces. You know, like so they dissolve and so you always could say also, like the idea of the functional city, yeah, coined by the Siam Congress, which is a functionally differentiated city where you have living here, working there, and then you have recreation, or then also administration, all these kind of things. So this differentiated city with the clear definition of where things are starts to dissolve with the 1950s, I would say. You know. Yeah, that's principle. I think that that's how I understand the concept of immaterial labor and how this is relating to architecture.
Perfect. And I will go on with it, talking about the connection between architecture and immaterial labor. And well, it's very interesting what you said, that, for example, when you said that the city becomes a sort of an entire place where you can develop your immaterial labor. And in fact, I was remembering about a discussion, a conversation we were having 3 weeks ago with an artist, Martino Jenkins, an Italian artist, and he was saying that he was answering to the questions of an interview, and he was saying that talking about immaterial labor and talking about the place where he works, he was saying that in this moment I am answering to these questions in a train, in this place, in this seat, and I don't have an exact place which represent my office place or my workplace, but my workplace is where I stay, is where I'm thinking and where I'm developing my research and my concepts. So it means that if I'm not wrong, it means that every place and our cities nowadays are the place to develop the immaterial labor, and just our presence make that place our workplace, our workspace, where we can develop our knowledge, our research, and our work. And talking about architecture, we can say that architecture has always organized and defined the places of the production and the places where we work. Would you like to present some of study cases that we know you researched about, and talking about, if you want to talk about them?
Certainly, I think it's what you just said. I think it's a crucial point. That is also, I think, for me at least, very much related to cybernetics, so to speak. Also, like, cybernetics is something that kind of really dropped down into all disciplines, you could say. Like, especially when you look at architecture, you have Jona Friedman, you have Constant, and all these and many other protagonists. And I think in the book that I wrote, the examples, I think that this concept of neutrality let's stick to the concept of neutrality for a second. It becomes very important. When when this your colleague or artist says that he has no space, but he has to actually create every time the space when he's working. I think these are exactly descriptions that are very, very important to understand. Exactly with the background of cybernetics and with the background of the starting of immaterial labor, because of course with cybernetics everything needs to become standardized. Because we need to start to, the idea was to make the whole society calculable, so we can calculate everything, and so that in order that all the machines can take over our work, so this starts with very simple terms, simple things, and grows more and more complex, which I think is as I said, has emancipatory aspects, but also kind of aspects that we need to be careful of. So ideally speaking, you suddenly have, with the cybernetic world, you have a world that is connected, networked, and have infrastructure, that is everywhere. And of course, the question that I'm interested in also today after the book is that what is the role of architecture, or the architect in that, and what we can certainly say also, like in line with the artist that you just mentioned, that the architect architecture becomes performative, he and she, we all become entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at one point, but also performative, so we have to create our stuff, in a way. And in the book that I had, the examples that I tried, that I used, I looked into many other examples, but in the book I narrowed it down to these 7 examples.
Can you please show the book?
It's only in German, unfortunately. So.
No, okay. The architecture and immaterial labor. Okay.
Yeah, and it's actually one can download it for free. I can send you the link afterwards where you can download this book for free. So, but what I tried to do is that what I'm pretending in the book with these 7 examples, which are the invention of office landscaping, and the Fun Palace by Cedric Price, Central Beheer, an office building by Hermann Herzberger, which is, these 3 form the first part, and then I have Hans Hollein sitting in his bubble in the mobile office. Then Hausrucker Koh's Yellow Heart project, which was also performance. And I end the book with John Lennon and Yoko Ono sitting in bed, first in Amsterdam and then in Montreal. So in a way, first, all these examples are, I argue, happening at the same time, and what becomes visible in these examples is that these examples are happening in the mode where immaterial labor becomes dominant. So we have a forced paradigm organizing these spaces, but at the same time, new forms, post-Fordist immaterial labor organizations become visible. Just to pick out, I think maybe the most, for the interview now, I think the most important ones are Fun Palace and Hans Hollein's mobile office project. Why do I say that? Because I think that in Fun Palace, it's in both these cases, I think that you start to understand that infrastructure becomes very important. Infrastructure that Marc Auger, I'm not speaking French, non-places. This book is becoming also very important, or this concept of this non-place, the infrastructure. And Fun Palace, in Fun Palace actually, which was a project that was kind of invented or initiated by an agitprop theater maker, as a very political theater maker, John Littlewood, together with Cedric Price and then also Gordon Pask, a cybernetician that came on later in the project. So they tried to have this huge scaffold where all these little neutral containers would be in there. And again, these containers, there are 2 things when we speak about the architecture. There's a scaffold that ideally, I could say it spans the whole world, and you have these pieces in there that are really containers that they have no quality as such as architecture, you know. But then when people come along, they can adapt the containers. So you're gone. Yeah.
No, we are sharing the screen.
Okay.
With the image of.
Thanks a lot. You know, I was just thinking maybe I should look for. So this is a visualization of the Fun Palace. So you have the scaffold and you have on the left
side.
Pardon?
No, all the scaffolds and the containers inside you were saying before.
Yeah, you know, perfect. And you see the staircase. So there's one thing, that the scaffold is open to all its sides. So you can enter the Fun Palace all sides, and it you know, like you could imagine that it goes on endlessly. You know, this scaffold, and then you have these kind of containers where there's on the left there's a little one. Yeah, this one. And now I see the Facebook site. Great. So, and these containers, they cannot do anything in a moment, but only when people arrive there and decide to make a theater or to make a pedagogic class, these containers become or get meaning or can be adapted to their needs. So in that respect, it's I think it's, you know, lifelong. I'm always saying that lifelong learning is getting invented in this very moment. So you have maybe also like to tell a little bit about the social situation for that project in England at that moment when it happened. So it started in 1962. It ended in 66 and it never built. You know, like Cedric Price later on built a similar thing in Camden. But at the moment, it was John Little would want to start the Fun Palace. Was that directly after the Second World War, England had a really bad economy, and so there was lots of unemployment, and the idea was really to make a people's palace. You know, a palace where these unemployed workers could go and start to, through self-organization, start to teach themselves many things, you know, like it was, you know, like if it would be sewing or if it would be other stuff. But then I'm just looking because I show you another example, because I think that what's interesting in this moment that there's just a moment.
If you want, in the meanwhile,
yeah.
I can a little quote that you mentioned in one of your lecture about the Fun Palace. Yeah. You said that Price intends, and with the Fun Palace, Price intends an architecture that is never completed, a building that is never a building, without a specific program, a specific form, and without a fixed layout. It is a becoming anti-architecture. It is, I think it's a very interesting phrase, and I mean, it represents in an interesting way, yes, from an interesting point of view, the concept of the relationship between immaterial labor and architecture, the architecture which has not a fixed layout. It is not a real architecture, but it can change in connection with the function of the work and the needs of the workers.
True. I don't find this because I wanted to show you that
you have time.
You have time.
Well, no, I don't know how much, but we have time.
No, we have time. No, it's yeah. No, that's Fun Palace. Here we are. No. Because I wanted to show you the Fun Palace. That's how I'm not really prepared, huh? You could say this is really awful. Sorry about that. I wanted to. There is by Pask, the guy who the cybernetic cybernetician that joined Cedric Price and John Littlewood during the process of thinking of how to kind of make this this new architecture, this new palace. Of course, cybernetics becomes very important because, and Gordon Pask was at that time in the 60s, he would have a company doing automats and machines that that are specialized in learning, playing and learning. So and the idea was at the end to have how to say, here it is. I'll just make it. I'll have to open it, and then to have a cybernetic organization. And just a moment. Now I have to.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Here we are, and
okay.
So you see that?
Yeah.
And yeah, and do you see also my cursor? Because the interesting thing is in the middle of the image.
Yeah.
You would have a field which says input of unmodified people, which is here.
Yeah.
Do you see the cursor where my mouse?
I don't see your no.
Okay. Because maybe
we see it. Okay, now perfect. Yeah. We see it. Yeah.
So this is there is the input of unmodified people, and then over there you have output of modified people. Yeah. So the idea of the cybernetic idea was to have people that don't know anything or whatever, or are unemployed and have no knowledge, and bored to death and about to start become alcoholics, and then at the end it is the output of modified people is they are aligned with the idea of leisure society, immaterial labor, and so on and so forth. I was just thinking maybe just a second, maybe I also show you the a little video.
Yeah.
Sure. By the second images. Hans Holland. By the other project that I was just mentioning that I think might be interesting for today is this one here. It's so again I have to I think it's here. And this is a video. Does it work? No.
No, you haven't shared it.
I have to share it. Yeah. So this is a video that this.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
There are also subtitles, so you should see that. So this is the performance, the television performance, a mobile office that Hans Holland would do.
Yeah, what the things, the phrase I'm reading now are they seem the phrase that we are talking about before about the artist, about our colleague, which he was saying that an artist, our worker nowadays doesn't want to stay in just one box, but you want to move from a place to place, always rethinking that place where we have to work. Yes, I think it's a super project, this one of the inflatable by Hans Hollein. Yes,
I think it's really important because what it does. It does so many things. It first tells you or shows you. So it's not an object any longer. And the architect is no longer. He's still a public figure, but at the same time he becomes a performer. A performer on television, telling people. But then also the architecture, like the bubble, it's a bubble that, or it has the quality of something that can be it creates a climate, but at the same time it can adapt to many different situations. And then again, I think the infrastructure that you don't see is very important, because so the cybernetic infrastructure. So you when you how to say, he's arriving at the airport somewhere, and what he's doing, he immediately has this vacuum cleaner where he can blow up his bubble. And so it is taken for granted, that cybernetics is everywhere, or the infrastructure is everywhere. Put it like this. Then that's enter. So this is again something that is really, I think, fascinating. How in this very moment already, Holland becomes an entrepreneur. He's speaking of himself as being an action man. He just came from America, an ideas man. He's not only an architect that builds. He's doing so many other things. This is how we are practicing architecture today, in a way.
Yeah.
And so exactly in this very moment, he's kind of foreseeing somehow our future, in a way, I'd say. Yeah. And I think for both these examples, but also the other bricks that I think it's we can come back. I think there's one important thing is that it's really not only the role of the architect is changing, so but with Cedric Price, it's someone who is working in a team. It's not no longer the author of the grant fantastic form, but it's someone who he's kind of orchestrating, organizing things. With Holland, it's this guy who is becoming the entrepreneur, as I already said. But at the same time, it's also what architecture does, And architecture is somehow framing a situation, in which possibilities can happen, be it the bubble of Holland, or be it the fun, or the scaffold of the Fun Palace, or be it the bubble of Holland. And then I think what for me it's important, when we speak about these things, or these projects, there's in relation to what we are experiencing it today. I think we need to be very much aware that these projects, but also, and then I think most obviously in the invention of the office landscape, there is a distinct change in economy, and the logic how society is working at that time. Maybe I just go back to the office landscape. I'm thinking, just a moment, because I think that might also be interesting in relation to contemporary forms of organization of labor. You have, you all know these, basically football field big interiors.
Yeah.
For example, this one here. This one here.
Yeah.
But also, like others, this one. Does this work here? What one? And this is, I think, in a very concrete way, they are implementing a horizontal organization of labor, where the boss and the co-workers are working in the same same hierarchy, on the same plane with the computers. And in a way, it's really, I think it's really kind of an emancipatory moment for workers, you know. But when we speak about, for example, Sana's Rolex Learning Center, you all know, you know, which is also an office landscape. Something else happens, you know, because in the office landscape, in this interior, people would be employed. They would get money to do the stuff, you know, and the knowledge they would produce would be. They would think that this knowledge would be produced for everybody, you know, so for all society. When we think of Rolex Learning Center, you know, first it's already marked by a company that is funding this thing, you know, Rolex. Then it's a part of the university where you some students need to pay to get into this building, you know, to be part of as being a student. So you no longer get paid, or like the faculty there is getting. I know I only can speak about. I don't know what the Swiss colleagues earn, maybe more, but in Austria, a university job doesn't pay any longer, really.
Yeah.
So and then the knowledge that is being produced is already sucked up by the university, you know. So because you have to do a PhD or whatever, it's shared copyright, which it's fine, you know. But at the same time, we need to be aware of that there is something else happening, you know. That we are doing this. For whom are we doing these things, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it was also one of the Rolex Center was a very good example, and also the one of the fun and bubble of Hans Olin were super interesting examples. I don't know if you want to add something else if you have questions. We don't have any more questions. We were imagining an intervention of 30-40 minutes, and I think it was super interesting and perfect what you said.
I have one.
And well, Salvatore has a question. Just a second.
Because Aureli don't criticize Fan Palace, but criticize Tinkerbell Potteries, another project of Price that were at a school, no? Starting from an abandoned
Place
factory.
Yeah.
He did this school, Immaterial school, and yeah. And I really criticize this kind of project, saying that there were the avant-garde of the advanced capitalism. So I don't know if this kind of project can see in a bad way or in a good way, but are just a special way to intend this changing.
Meanwhile, I sent you a link of the School of Dialogue Rooms, which is a project.
No, this is not.
No, but this is not what you're saying. This is another.
This is another.
This is another project talking about the Fan Palace made by Aristide Antonas. I just wanted to share with you the link, and it is a school.
I saw the link, but the link has disappeared. You know, no, but maybe back to Vittorio's. Maybe back to Per Vittorio's criticism. I think for me, it's not so easy, you know, because you know, retrospectively, you know, you always could say, well, you know, they did this wrong, and you always could say, you know, this is the most advanced capitalism, and it's bad or whatever, you know, like I think it's precisely not that, you know, it's not bad, it's not good, you know, it's something that is in, and this is, I think, also the dilemma that we're working in when we are architects, you know, and really want to produce something that we are entangled, yeah, we are not standing outside of something, but we are entangled in society, yeah, so there's always the possibility to fail, you know. And I think, and of course, you know, like with Cedric Price, you know, you could say this guy was certainly not left, you know, certainly not, you know, and he took up you know, the ideas of John Littlewood, who was very much left and was a really, you know, an activist theater maker, but and turned them around. But you know, that he did this, you know, because he also wanted to do architecture and he believed in some things, you know. So you can be very much critical about him, but at the same time, I think there is always an ambivalency there, yeah. And you need to be, and this is the same thing with many projects that happen today, you know, that not everything that is participatory is good, you know. Not everything that is ad hoc, bottom up is good, you know, because these things can also go wrong, you know. So there's always a very, very thin line where you can, you know, where you could fail, but you also succeed in one way or the other. So I love this thing of the concept of double affirmation. You know, as an architect, you cannot, to your client, whoever this client would be, also to yourself, if you're yourself the client and you want to edit a project, you cannot say, hey, this is stupid, you know, just fuck off, you know, because then you don't do these things, you know. But you have to really affirm what is given to you, but at the same time you can, with architecture, with the means of architecture, with the way spaces are organized, you can subvert, I would argue, yeah, subvert the brief, you know. You can change the world so that it's not only that, you know, it's not the thing that, in a way, it's like the Michel Foucault's idea of the subject, yeah, which is always double, you know. We are born into a situation that we cannot, that, you know, we are here, you know. So what the fuck, you know, we have to deal with that, you know. But we are, so at one point, like I'm a victim of the situation, you know. But no, it's not, you know. Like you're partly a victim, but partly you're also becoming someone who is acting in the situation, and with this acting, you can change the situation, you know. And I think this is the ambivalency or the dilemma that architecture is also working in, you know, so that you really have to engage with that what is there, and you cannot step outside. So I think that, and that's what I was trying to do with this book is, and also the other work that I'm doing, that you have to engage with you know, finance capital in one way or the other, you know. This is our reality. As you are doing this with your project now, you know, trying asking what kind of different pedagogies could happen, you know, what kind of different knowledge production could happen outside the institutions, you know. So these things, and they also can fail, you know, like, but this is something that we have to be honest with us, you know. We have to do that, and we have to do this with really with empathy, you know, and energy, and at the same time we have to step back and say, well, what did we do here, huh? Yeah, so does this answer the question of PV?
Yeah.
And yeah. I don't know, I know Aristide, but I don't know what Aristide did with the Fun Palace, you know, so I have to ask him, or you, would be great to have this link.
It was perfect, yes. What else? Nothing. We have finished the question. No, yes, we have finished our question, and I think what you said was super interesting and super related to what we're trying to investigate in these days. And we want to thank you for your time, for your attention to our invitation. And nothing, Andreas. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Hey, thanks for inviting me. Huh? It was fantastic speaking to you.
Yeah. Don't worry, it was a pleasure for us. Thank you again. Have a good day.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Ciao.
Nice. Andreas. Ciao.